people's right to privacy. A responsible approach is required by individuals as well as by governments. In Hong Kong, we have a sound legal system. We take great pride in upholding the rule of law and protecting the freedom that we cherish. Except for selected law enforcement purposes, Internet service providers uphold confidentiality of user data, helping to foster a healthy and open environment for the Internet community. My second point is cybersecurity. Hong Kong government has put in place an IT security management framework to protect our critical Internet infrastructure against cyber attack. The Hong Kong Computer Emergency Response Team Coordination Center collaborates with global information security organizations to gather security intelligence and provide advice on measures to counter security threats and prevent cyber attacks. We also promote information security awareness among the community at large. We are committed to continuing with our work on these fronts to ensure a safe and trustworthy environment for Internet users. Third, enhancing accessibility. The Internet belongs to everyone. To facilitate access to online information and services, we have been implementing the Web Accessibility Campaign since 2011. The campaign encourages good barrier-free website designs that are accessible to everyone. Government websites conform to World Wide Web Consortium Web Content Accessibility Guidelines Level AA. To encourage the private sector to follow suit, we organize training and we provide relevant resources. We have also launched a Web Accessibility Recognition Award to salute organizations and enterprises which adopt web accessibility designs in their websites. So, ladies and gentlemen, the potential of the Internet and its convergence with other emerging technologies are enormous. Today, we pay tribute to those who have paved the way for Internet development as pioneers, as innovators, and global connectors. I congratulate all the new inductees into the Internet Hall of Fame. And finally, I would like to thank the Internet Society and the Internet Society Hong Kong chapter for staging this event, which is a highlight of the International IT Fest 2014. I wish you all an enjoyable time and our visitors a memorable stay with us here in Hong Kong. Just remember one thing, shop a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let us introduce our local host, Mr. Chester Song, Chairman of the Internet Society Hong Kong chapter.
Mr. Secretary, Joey, Charles, the Hall of Famers, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of ISOC Hong Kong, I must thank the ISOC Board of Trustees and also the Internet Hall of Fame Committee to allow ISOC Hong Kong chapter to be the local host of such a magnificent event of the Internet community. It is only our privilege and honor to have such an event being hosted in Hong Kong. When you hear thank you notes or speeches for Oscars or similar, our ceremonies, people usually start by saying, thank you to so and so, without these people, the making of such movie would not be possible, blah, blah, blah. And I would like to say exactly that tonight. Well, of course, we're not making a movie, right? But although these Hall of Famers still do not represent the thousands and thousands of people who work so hard to have created and to operate the Internet, without these Internet visionaries, innovators, and entrepreneurs, for whom we have here, the Internet might not be here. These people did not just make a website that hit 1 million users, first month, or created an app that, have hundreds and thousands of downloads in few days. These people invented technologies and that formed and shaped the Internet where it is today. Most of you know who founded Facebook, Amazon, WhatsApp, and probably know how much their net worths are, when they sell the companies, right? But you may not actually know who created the computer mouse, World Wide Web, IP routing, SendMail, and the open platform of Linux, where a lot of our internet platforms are operating on today. So the technologies and software that these people created or invented have affected the way internet exists, the way it is used, and even how it will be changed in the future. So as a member of the internet community, this is my most honorable moment to be part of the Internet Hall of Fame 2014 and welcome these extraordinary individuals in person to Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now is it possible to have a group photo of all of you sitting there on the stage? If you just stay there. Photo opportunity. Feel free to take a photograph, any of you, if you want to.
Okay, one more here. Okay, ready? 1, 2. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. This way, please.
Okay, thank you. Now, the big moment for the awards. We will announce our 2014 inductees, and when your name is announced, we'll ask you to come up to the stage and make a few brief remarks. We have a sample of the award here on the table for you to see, which is a medallion encased in a shadow box. For ease of transporting, we will ship your award to your home in the next several weeks. Today, when you come up on stage, Kathy Brown will hand you a leather portfolio and certificate as a keepsake from this event. So let's begin with the inductees, starting with the innovators. Innovators category, recognizing individuals who made outstanding technological, commercial, or policy advances and helped to expand the internet's reach. Eric Allman. Created Deliver Mail for the ARPANET and SendMail, one of the first mail transfer agents on the internet. Let's welcome him. Eric Allman.
Hello. I have managed to live an extraordinarily lucky lifetime. One of my first strokes of luck was happening to arrive at UC Berkeley the same year that Unix did, 1973. And so I got in on the ground floor there. And there were some extraordinary people at Berkeley as well, which made Berkeley Unix into something that was closely tied to the growth of the internet. When I started, of course, there was no capital I internet. There were, however, eventually a bunch of smaller networks that didn't talk to each other, and I decided that they needed to talk to each other at least for email. And we had ARPANET, we had something called BerkNet, we had UUCP, and later PurdueNet and CSNet and so forth. And so that was the lowercase I internet. That's what John Quarterman calls the matrix. And that was Deliver Mail. That was to make those things work together. Bill Joy was one of the principals on the Berkeley Unix version that had the first TCP IP stack, and he needed somebody to write the mail server. And somehow he convinced me to do this, which if I had realized at the time, I never would have done it, but that's true of many things. So that was the conversion from Deliver Mail to SendMail. The goal of SendMail was still to try and unify things, pull things together, and not necessarily to do everything, which many systems these days apparently feel they need to re-implement absolutely everything, which seems wasteful to me. I also ended up working on something called syslog, which is the basic system logging facility. I did that as part of the SendMail project, but intentionally to be generic. And that, in some sense, has been more successful than SendMail, even though nobody seems to know that I wrote it. It's in pretty much every printer, wireless access point, you name it, it's just there. And so I'm actually quite proud of that, even if I am anonymous on that side. There are, of course, way too many people to thank. So I'm not going to try and thank all of them, but I'm going to call out just a couple of names. Bill Joy, of course, who, if he hadn't talked me into this, I wouldn't be here today. Michael Stonebreaker and Susan Graham, who were both at various times employing me to do something else, and yet still managed to allow me to work on SendMail. Brian Costales, who literally wrote the book on SendMail and made it much more popular. Documentation is important, I'm here to tell you. And finally, my husband, Marshall Kirk McCusick, who supported me through a lot of this thing, including all the times I spent way more time with my computer than I did with him. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the second one, Eric Biener, who co-created the first widely used browser, Mosaic, and co-founded Netscape. Eric was not able to join us today, but we will accept this award on his behalf. Okay. Next, we have Karl-Heinz Brandenburg, the driving force behind some of today's most innovative digital audio technology, notably MP3 and the MPEG audio standards. Let's welcome Karl-Heinz Brandenburg.
So, thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here, but okay, that's the usual speech, but I have to do it. I'm standing here for a number of others. Like it's usual in science, of course, standing on the shoulders of others. There was a lot of other work. But there were a lot of other people involved in that. MP3 is the nickname today used for MPEG audio layer 3. And that's a standard issued by the ISO IEC subgroup called MPEG, Moving Pictures Experts Group. So you know that, and you know that there are lots of people who have a say of what the standard will be. But before becoming a standard, of course, there was technology to be built. So I have to thank my former bosses, Professor Seitzer, who in the 70s had the idea that it should be possible to send audio over phone lines, over ISDN. And at that time he was told by a patent examiner, no, according to the state of the art, this is impossible. So he tried and had to find a PhD student who would try, and luckily I was around. And Professor Gerhäuser, who later led the group at Fraunhofer to do all this work. The chairs of the standards group, Leonardo Ciraglione, the convener of MPEG, Professor Moosman and Professor Knoll later on, who chaired the audio group. But that's just the formal part. There's a lot of people's ideas in there. And yes, there's somebody in the US who had very similar ideas. He did his patent application a little bit too late. But otherwise, we worked together then, in fact. That's Jim Johnston of AT&T Bell Labs at that time. And he gets to be blamed for some of these ideas as well. And there's a whole group in Erlangen. Bernhard Grill, Jürgen Harre, Ernst Eberlein, Thomas Sporer, Harold Popp. You see, I read, so I don't forget too many of them, but there were more. We had at some point a real team of people working together in all aspects. We had people from other companies helping us a lot, like Bernd Edler from Hanover and so on. But that's only one part to be able to develop such a technology, to do all the politics in the standards group, which wasn't easy. And then, in most people's minds, to be the second ones. Technology which was leading technology-wise, but too complicated to be used right away. So we had a difficult start time. So the thank goes to everybody who helped to spread the technology. Okay, no, there's one guy I won't thank, and that's the one who used the stolen credit card number to buy our software and then spread it claiming it's free. He did help us, but still I don't thank him. But I thank everybody who believed in the technology. We had our friends, and in the end, MP3 really helped to change the internet by making music available. By some means people didn't like, especially the music labels didn't like. And I have to say always, no, I think musicians and labels should be paid for their work. But there was really a grassroots movement of people who liked the technology and spread it, and I have to thank all these. MP3 is really a success of the internet as well, not just that we used the emerging ideas of writing frequently asked questions on net news or spreading shareware software in the early days. All that helped. So thanks to everybody, thanks to the Internet Society to select this technology, and that's it.
Next we have John Choffey, known as the father of DSL. Let's welcome John Choffey.
Well, first let me begin by thanking the Internet Society for selecting me. It's truly a great honor to be inducted here into your Internet Hall of Fame. In viewing the list of previous and current inductees, one is awestruck by the just to be included among them. My own contributions in broadband access, particularly DSL, seem somewhat dwarfed by those of the others, and I thank the Hall profusely for including me. But nonetheless, DSL is used on 500 million phone lines around the world, and I look forward to seeing billions of bits per second go to billions of people over the next decade. As with everyone, there are many other people who have contributed to this area that I'd like to thank. First, let me start with Stanford University, who was my employer for about 2 decades and where much of the early work was done. And in particular, all the many students there who participated in the developments of DSL, they really did all the work. And not the least of which were some of those who joined me at a small company called Amati, which pioneered the original DSL designs in the early 1990s, including Peter Chow, Jackie Chow, Jim Aslanis, Krista Jacobson, along with professionals from the industry, Mark Flowers, Mark Mallory, and John Bingham. Also thanks to Texas Instruments, who purchased Amati after it had gone public with the basic DSL chips, and they promoted that area, and for several years thereafter were the largest supplier of DSL components in the world. Further, great thanks goes to my current employer, ASSIA Inc., which has been a true pioneer in advancing DSL and Wi-Fi software definition and management of access networks, where many more former Stanford students have joined me. A list here: Wanjon Lee, Iker Almondaz, George Ginnis, Mehdi Mussini, Artavan Maleke, Phil Bednars, Mark Goldberg, Chengyu Chen, Mingyan Chen, Bin Lee, Wuyo Lee, Bill Abbott, Chansu Wang, Mohammed Karafuddin, and Tosin Alutsen have made tremendous contributions, as well as engineering professionals there also, Peter Silverman, Mani Balakrishnan, Arash Sahidi, Sina Kalegi, and Mingxing Huang. Jeff Moyer, Ken Kerpez, Stefano Galli, and Kamal Yassin. And also to the rest of the very supportive staff and professional business people there at ASI. And finally, and especially to our company's namesake and my wife and co-founder of the company, Asia, who's here with me tonight for a continued source of inspiration and support. She's sitting right over there. So thank you very much.
Next, we have Hualin Qian, led completion of the initial internet connection in China and the construction of China's top-level domain.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have much to say because I haven't done much. I want to express my thanks to the Internet Society for organizing this in the Internet Hall of Fame program. And also want to express my thanks to my colleagues working together with me for many, many years. Lastly, I want to express my thanks to the Internet pioneers who invented the Internet. This is not only beneficial to the people around the world, especially in China. There are more than 600 million people using Internet every day. But also, it's very beneficial to me. For me, they created job opportunities to get rid of unemployment. Thank you.
Now we have Paul Vixie, who designed and deployed several domain name system protocol extensions and applications that are used throughout the Internet today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I spent the first half, let's say 15 years of a career trying to make communications easier. Because I could tell that something like the Internet could become humanity's collective digital nervous system. And I thought that was a cool thing. I thought that would be great. I've spent roughly the second half, another 15 years, trying to make communication harder, or at least more selective and safer, because of all of the criminals and spammers that we brought with us when we created humanity's collective digital nervous system. I stand here, as was mentioned, on the shoulders of giants, at least a dozen of whom I see in the audience before me. I went around when I realized that success was inevitable. Sometime in the last 10 years, I went around and I said, how can I thank you guys? And they said, pay it forward. That's what we did. And so that's what I'm doing. Thank you all for inviting me and for this award.
Now we will move on to our next category, which is Global Connectors, recognizing individuals from around the world who have made significant contributions to the global growth and use of the Internet. Firstly, we have Di Davis, who introduced Internet technology into the pan-European backbone EuropaNet.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor and a privilege to stand here and address you. It is a really remarkable looking back over 23 years working in the Internet environment. When I started in 1991, I was a hired gun. I was brought in to create a network, a pan-European network, and I was going to do it for 3 years. 23 years later, I'm still involved in the same thing. What actually happened was it wasn't just a project. We created an organization. That organization is Dante, and Dante has been responsible for 6 generations of pan-European research Internet. And we moved from 64 kilobits technology to 100 gigabits technology in that period of time. I would particularly like to mention Howard Davis, who was co-general manager of me and founding general manager of Dante, and the Dante team. And also, I think it's important to put it in a funding context as well, because the European Commission has given us tremendous support in terms of developing both the European footprint and making internet technology available, both from a research perspective, but also to support researchers in other disciplines. Finally, I look back at the very freewheeling spirit of development, which is really what the internet is all about. And I think it is vital to preserve that very open development environment, which the academic community has helped so much to contribute. Corporatism has a place in the internet, but ultimately it's about individuals and individual creativity. And that spirit, which was there 23 years ago, is still there today and is what we must preserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Demi Getchko, key player in establishing the first internet connection to Brazil and member of Brazilian Internet Steering Committee since its creation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What can I say? First of all, thank you very much to ISOC and the sponsors of this magnificent event. It's an honor for me to be here. It's an undeserved honor for me. But I'm proud to be a tiny bit of this construction, this marvelous construction that internet is, and keep being. We began this in the 80s in Brazil, began to connect academic networking, and so I am part of a big team that worked on that. I will not try to remember all the names, but I can remember Professor Oscar Sala, maybe remember also Tadao Takahashi, Ivan Moura Campos, Alberto Gomidi, Michael Stanton, and many others that will not cite their names right now, but really important on this effort. And we saw that the internet faced a lot of threats from the very beginning, the battle from protocols, how we can evolve the TCP/IP under the pressure of the current CCITT protocols for networking. I think that the problem is the same in many countries. And we see internet embracing billions of new users without losing its characteristics of openness, of voluntary contribution and freedom. And we hope that we will keep it in this way. I finish with the well-known phrase of the late Postel that we are living very interesting times and keep living these interesting times. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Masaki Hirabaru. Instrumental role in the formation of the Japan Network Information Center and proposed creation of the Asia-Pacific Network Information Center. This is a posthumous award. Accepting the award on his behalf is his daughter, Mika Hirabaru.
I'm Masaki's daughter, Mika Hirabaru. I'm very happy that I could participate in this ceremony today for my father. To be honest, I grew up without knowing much of his work. But this time I could know that there were many people who highly regarded his work and loved his character. It's been 5 years since he passed away, but this induction gave me a chance to know the other side of him. I am very proud of him and I really miss him. I want to say thank you to all people who came and regarded my father's work, and especially Mr. Maemura and Mr. Fujisaki to support me today. Thank you very much.
you. Eric Hauser, first author of the first request for comments to document not only the Internet Engineering Task Force standards process, but also the procedures of working groups. Thank you, Eric Hauser.
Well, I never thought I'd stand here and then have to say a thank you word in the same way that the Oscar winners do. I will thank my mother, but I'll do that a little bit later. I learned today a couple of things. I'm a music lover, and I learned. Do you know that Will I Am has a number that is called Hall of Fame? So that's something we should try and listen to tonight. The other one, of course, is that I finally got the meaning of the Oasis number, standing on the shoulders of giants, because as has been said before, that's how I feel I am here. It was 1987. I had just finished my PhD, during which I had implemented the IP protocol on some PCs. And my boss, to whom I owe very much, Kees Naggers at that time. Kees, by the way, is also an inductee in the Hall of Fame. He sent me off to an internet meeting in Boston. And I arrived in Boston in a hotel, checked in, came downstairs and feared, what shall I do for dinner? And there I run into Vint Cerf, who didn't know me, of course, but I knew him. So I boldly introduced myself, and Vint said, hey, you want to come to dinner? And I said, well, yes, please. So he shoved me into a cab. And I turned around, and I was sitting besides John Postel, Steve Crocker, and in front was Vint Cerf. The rest, as they say, is history. So then let me start by thanking a couple of people. First of all, my parents, without whom I wouldn't be here. And they always inspired me to think independently. And I think that's one of the main things you can teach your children. Of course, my family. I've been away a lot. And they've always put up with that. My children never understood what I'm doing. They still don't understand what I'm doing here. But one of my daughters remarked, great that you go to Hong Kong, you can buy me a fake Gucci bag. And my employers, NOB, TNO, gave me all the freedom to do whatever I needed to do. But most of all, SurfNet. I used to work there from 2000 to 2012. I came back 2 years ago as CTO, and this is a company that always has worked to build a part of an open, trustworthy, and accessible internet. And that is exactly what I think I've been doing over the last 30 years. Helping to create that open, trustworthy, and accessible internet. I met many fantastic, motivated, driven, and especially fun people in the process, a lot of whom are in this room. And it really inspired me to work even harder on this. And I really thank you all for being here and being my colleagues and working with me. And last thing I want to say is that mid last year I got incredibly angry when I realized that I've been building this open, trustworthy and accessible internet. Well, that's what I thought. And that governments have started misusing this same internet to spy on their own civilians. This is not what we build the internet for. So please, let's continue our work and make sure that governments don't misuse it in this way. Thank you.
Stephen Huter. As head of the Network Startup Resource Center, he's worked in more than 100 countries to help build internet infrastructure.
Thank you to the Internet Society and to the Hong Kong ISOC chapter for hosting this event, and to those who nominated me for this honor today. I gratefully accepted as director and leader of the NSR's Network Startup Resource Center, though I think this nomination should rightfully go to the group as a body, the body as a group of NSRC, recognizing many others that have contributed to this work. I came along in the early 1990s to join the Internet development community at a time when this work was cultivated by a mix of academia, government, and industry, and it was really starting to flourish. And the growth of the net was starting to explode at that point, with 2 to 3 new countries joining, every month or two with their first full TCP/IP connections. I met Randy Bush in Portland, Oregon in 1993, where he was connecting a number of countries around the world using FidoNet, UCPs, intermittent dial-up IP links, satellite IP links, all kinds of stepping stone arrangements that connected Peru, South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Belize, Lebanon, Guinea, Saudi Arabia, all were connecting through Oregon, through this work Randy had been doing, and others that were really designed to help computer scientists and network engineers in those countries provide internet access and services to their communities. So I was really intrigued by the work of the NSRC, and one of my first assignments was to do a global survey of the various connections and the types that existed in Asia, Pacific, Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, and the Middle East, to try and inform the United States National Science Foundation where new links were emerging and possibly new could be useful for international science and educational collaborations. And there were also lots of NGOs around at this time that were among the first user communities taking advantage of internet communications to enhance their work on health, education, economic development, human rights advocacy. And we always try to team up with these groups, these orgs, so they could use the internet to enhance their work more effectively. What inspires me the most, I think, about the work that I do, and what I enjoy most about the work that I do, is the people. I've been so fortunate to work with literally thousands of amazing people in more than 100 countries, from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe. And I think the social engineering that's required for starting new networks and is a really important aspect of the internet development, and it's often how these things get started. And and then ultimately, to build sustainable networks, you've got to have local hands cultivating local expertise. Hence our effort on so much training and capacity building with many of the people in this room in various places around the world. But I think I'm always happiest, when we've completed some challenging work in the field, the networks are happily moving more IP packets to more people, and then my friends in the country, invite me and the NSRC team to their homes for dinner. And, we meet their families and enjoy some fun times together. And those are the really meaningful memories that I cherish in this work. Open architecture networking is really what makes the internet, and every new node on the net has the potential to be a peer. And I mean that in the physical sense of peering and exchanging data and content, but more importantly in the human sense of being your peer, your collaborator, your friend. And it's important that we respect all nodes and all people who are part of the internet community system. Who knows where the next big thing on the net will come from? Thanks to my family, to my colleagues at University of Oregon, and to all who support me and the NSRC in our internet development ventures to light up more places and connect more places around the world. Thank you.
Abaya Endura, a pioneered academic and research networking and internet deployment in Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much. Good evening, fellow inductees, my family, especially my granddaughter Kiara, who is with us, and also my friends here. Imagine a world before the World Wide Web. Imagine a time before you had smartphones, and imagine a life where you had to live with X25. And this was the time I was dreaming of a research academic network for Sri Lankan academic community. It was in 1983, the Vice Chancellor of University of Moratuwa, Professor Willie Mendes, asked me to set up a department to teach computing. And at that time, I came from electrical engineering, so I've been teaching Fortran, but not computing or computing science. So I looked around and found that there were courses in Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia at that time. So I came to Hong Kong in 1984. And I visited Hong Kong University, studied their curriculum, and that was the first time I got a taste of research and academic networking. It was fascinating to see, even in 1984, with all the non-standard, disparate technologies, they were somehow exchanging information. And in 1989, I proposed to the Sri Lankan government the setting up of what I call LEARN, Lanka Experimental Academic and Research Network. You can imagine, being a developing country, funds are not easy to come by. So in 1990, with very limited resources I had, we launched LEARN Mail, the first IP-based email for academics and researchers in the country. Initially, of course, Steve missed Sri Lanka in the list. Randy was always helping us to connect, UCP. So we were sending mail by IDD, which was very expensive at the time, connecting 3 times a week. Now, of course, the volume exploded. And within a few months, we were connecting 3 times a day. And because it was expensive, we had to seek support. And I must mention the support we got from the Computer and Information Technology Council of Sri Lanka. At the time, I was an inaugural board member, so I was able to twist their arms, get some funds. The University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka, and also the LuckNet, a not-for-profit organization set up in the US to support new ICT endeavors in Sri Lanka. In 1992, I reformulated the proposal and submitted to the government again, but this time calling Learn Internet. Now, X25 was gone, and I was happy. And that time I was lucky. The government was happy to provide 3 million Sri Lankan rupees, about 30,000, 40,000 US dollars at the time. And we were able to buy routers and 364 kilobits per second wireless links. And again, I should mention here the developing country workshops organized and funded by the Internet Society. That's where I met great people like Randy and George Sadowski, and I came to know about Steve, and with people like Ben Siegel helping us, we were able to set up the first IP WAN in Sri Lanka, connecting my university, University of Moratuwa, to the University of Colombo and the Open University. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I'm standing here today, certainly not because of only my effort. It was celebrating this collective effort that we put in. So I'm not going to mention names, but at least I should mention the brilliant students I had. Most of them are professionals on their own rights today. Professor Gihandas, Professor Lalit Kamage, Professor Nimal Ratnayaka. They were all helping me at the time to set it up. And I'm very glad that country has benefited. I've been able to make a significant impact on socio-economic development in that country. And I'm very delighted to be here today. I'm deeply honored to be part of this celebration. Thank you, Internet Society, and thank you very much.
Dorcas Mathoni, founder of a mentorship and capacity building initiative for women in computing across Africa. She was not able to join us, but she sent a representative to accept the award. The award will be accepted by Irene Misoy.
I'm greatly honored to be in your midst. I will receive the award on behalf of Dorcas Mudhoni, who could not be here with us. She just had a small baby about a month ago. So a Linux Chicks member added on to the community. I'll read a small speech from her. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm greatly honored with this award. I'm really excited that I won it and want to thank you for supporting me and trusting my professional qualities. Your support means a lot to me. It is a recognition of my hard work during more than 20 years. Today, I'm an entrepreneur and a mentor, and I believe that I have followed my vocation. Since my early years, I was sure the information technology would really bring the world together through the internet. My story of success started many years back when I started by helping build networks for universities, being among the first women engineers to work with the Kenya Educational Network, which is the NREN for Kenyan institutions of higher learning, which has grown over the years, and later started up an open source company called Open World that develops software, open source software for e-governments. And in 2004, founded an organization called AFCHICS Africa, a technical capacity building initiative for women in the region. For over 5 years in Kenya and across other African countries, AFCHICS activities have included organizing annual computing career conferences with a special emphasis on encouraging the uptake of computing careers amongst young women and high school girls. This is one of my greatest passions. We have trained many women in Linux system administration from many African countries that have AFCHICS chapters, who in turn have become trainers and trained other women in their countries. We started a mentorship program, career workshop for girls in high school. This involved bringing together girls from secondary schools all over the country in Kenya and invited women engineers, programmers, web developers to mentor the girls, and it takes to get into the various, and what it takes to get into the various careers in computing. And we have done this for the last 10 years. And this has really had an impact. And we can see this when we walk along the corridors of the universities that we work with. A girl walks towards me and says, "Thank you for helping me make up my mind into doing computer science. I attended one of the career workshops that you organized. And this gives me great joy to see many great women engineers from various disciplines. This gives me great joy. Thanks to the many great women engineers from the various chapters of AFCHICS Africa. Thanks to our great sponsors like Internet Society, who have sponsored the various trainings all over Africa. Thanks to Steve Hutter from Network Startup Resource Center for the constant support in this. Though we all deal in different spheres, we have something in common. It is striving for better. And I'm glad I can say this. It is a great honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the category of Global Connectors. Thank you.
Now we have Mahabir Pun, connected remote villages in Nepal Himalaya with Wi-Fi and other wireless technology.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak, and thank you. I would like to thank you all for inducting me in the Hall of Fame. I did not invent anything. I am not an innovator. And the only thing I did is, in early 2000, when the Wi-Fi was just coming, I used the simple indoor router to make a long-range, wireless link, 40-kilometer link, to bring internet in my home village. That was the starting. I did not know that time much about the technology itself. I could not have done everything without the help of these undergraduate university students from America and Europe. It was a time, when it was illegal. The government had banned to use all kind of wireless equipment and bring it into the country because of the fighting going there. So those university students, undergraduate students, they helped me to smuggle everything, all these, these small indoor routers to the country, and they helped me to, build. I work as a team leader for them, but, without their help, I could not have done that. We, used this small indoor router and built our own antennas, different type of antennas, and became able to build the long-range, link, wireless link, and it was very surprise to most of these, telecommunication engineers, professionals, because they thought that it would not work, but that worked. So I would like to thank those friends from the early days also. I worked for 4 years, from 2002 to 2006, building, wireless network in the remote areas. And most of these areas, they don't have any roads and they don't have any telephones, electricity. I work illegally. We built the network illegally and brought the internet there and introduced into the schools in the communities. So in 2006, I went to the member of parliaments and gave them a presentation, telling them what we did to bring internet in the remote areas, and I told them how it is useful for the people in the remote areas as well. So and I asked them to legalize it. So within a week, they legalized the network and they delicense 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz frequencies. So it's legal now. So we are using 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz to build wireless network in the remote villages where no commercial providers are going, because it is not feasible, financially feasible, for the commercial providers to go in the remote areas and provide an internet service and bring the benefit of the technology for the rural people. And that's what I am doing. And I hope that this award will help me to, convince the government to do more, to introduce the technology in the area, and for the benefit of especially for the people who are, at the bottom of the pyramid. So I am not only advocating with the government for open and free internet. I'm advocating with the government to make, the internet available freely also, because the people simply cannot afford to have it. So for that, what I am advocating with the government is to use the Universal Obligation Fund to provide the free internet for the people in the rural areas and bring the benefit of the technology there. Thank you very much.
Srinivasan Ramani led ERNet team at India's National Centre for Software Technology to set up Central Mail Switch and International Gateway. Let's welcome.
Thanks to the Internet Society and to the Internet Hall of Fame for having invited me here and honoring me. I stand here as a representative of a number of groups of colleagues. Was a part of what I did as a part of the Indian Academic Network project called the Education and Research Network, ERNet, funded by the Government of India and supported by the United Nations Development Program. And it was perceived, it was conceived in a spirit of networking for development, for developing countries everywhere. There was a excitement with the idea that developing countries needed computer networking technology very badly, and this technology had a very special meaning for them, and the academic community could be forerunners in adopting and adapting the technology and innovating on it and making it available to industry and to business. So it was part of this large program that I worked on this. We were fortunate, we were in Mumbai where there were excellent telecom facilities, and I was the director of a National Center for Software Technology, as was mentioned, and therefore we were Unix hackers, and with BSD Unix, for which I paid a princely sum of $110 for, the reel came free, a reel of tape. And with this $110 worth of BSD Unix, we were able to get a lot done, get the suite of computer networking suite running, and we were all set and ready for networking, but the telecom links were not there. So, but Mumbai had the internet, not the internet, the international gateway for telecom, so it was not too difficult for us to get good telecom connections to the world, and we connected with Center Wiskunde Informatik in Amsterdam. Colleagues there were very kind enough to give us a connection, and we set up the first internet gateway in India. This was done by the ERNet project team at the National Center for Software Technology, and which I headed at that time. But more exciting than just the technology of getting a connection was working with 6 advanced institutes in India, the 6 the IITs, as we call them, Indian Institutes of Technology, and setting up connections between Mumbai and these 6 IITs, and working with the 6 senior colleagues at all these locations, and with the Government of India team in Delhi, and working with the UNDP. So these were exciting times, and we got this work done, and we were able to train hundreds of students who went on to serve the industry and consult for the industry, pass the technology on to the industry. So this is the back involved in, and involved in, and involved in, and involved in, and involved in.